The world is watching China, not for its tech or politics, but for a single, staggering number: 300%. That's China's total debt to GDP ratio, a mountain of borrowed money casting a shadow over the global economy. For decades, China's economic miracle was fueled by unprecedented borrowing. Now, the bill is coming due. A misstep could trigger a financial earthquake felt from Wall Street to Africa's commodity markets. This isn't just about numbers in Beijing, it's about the foundation of the modern global system. China is the world's second-largest economy and a critical consumer of everything from iron ore to luxury cars. A slowdown or crisis in China would send shockwaves worldwide, disrupting supply chains and tanking markets. The question is no longer if the debt matters, but when and how it will reshape our reality. To understand this, we must peel back the layers of China's unique economic model and see how this debt was built. The urgency is real. Cracks in China's economic armor are growing, the property market is sputtering, and growth is slowing. Beijing's leaders are now locked in a desperate battle against financial gravity, trying to deflate a massive credit bubble without popping it. To grasp China's debt problem, look at the numbers: over 310% of GDP, or more than $50 trillion. This is a historically unprecedented level for a developing economy, and the speed of accumulation is just as alarming. In 2008, China's debt to GDP was 140%. In less than 2 decades, it more than doubled. Unlike the US, where government debt dominates, China's debt is mostly domestic and concentrated in its corporate sector, especially state-owned enterprises and real estate developers. Japan's high government debt is offset by its wealth and stability. China, still a middle-income country, faces a far more precarious situation. The biggest risks lie in the corporate sector, with non-financial corporate debt at 160% of GDP, one of the world's highest. Household debt has also soared, driven by mortgages for properties whose values are now falling. This mountain of debt was built by design, a state-led policy to achieve growth at any cost. Every skyscraper and high-speed rail line was financed with borrowed money, channeled through state-controlled banks. For years, this model worked, lifting millions out of poverty. But now, the debt that fueled the miracle has become its greatest liability. The engine of growth is now a potential instrument of destruction. China's modern debt crisis began with the 2008 global financial crisis. As Western demand collapsed, Beijing unleashed a massive stimulus, 4 trillion yuan, to keep its economy afloat. State-owned banks flooded the economy with cheap loans, sparking the world's biggest infrastructure boom. The plan worked. China kept growing while the world plunged into recession. But growth became addicted to credit, shifting from exports to debt-fueled investment. The quality of investment declined, with money poured into projects that failed to deliver sustainable returns. Ghost cities and white elephant projects became symbols of this unproductive debt. Local governments tasked with implementing the stimulus borrowed aggressively but were restricted from running deficits. To bypass rules, they created thousands of local government financing vehicles, or LGFVs, to borrow off the books. These entities funded infrastructure but created a massive, opaque system of hidden debt. The result? A sprawling web of liabilities now at the heart of China's financial risk. The seeds of today's crisis were sown in the rush to build at any cost. At the core of China's debt-fueled growth is real estate, accounting for up to 30% of GDP. Rising property prices created a feedback loop. Citizens poured savings into apartments, developers borrowed heavily, and local governments relied on land sales for revenue. This codependency fueled a frenzy, resulting in tens of millions of empty apartments and entire ghost cities. These empty towers are the physical manifestation of the debt bubble, trillions locked in unproductive assets. The party ended when Beijing introduced the 3 red lines policy in 2020, capping developer borrowing. Unable to refinance, major developers like Evergrande defaulted, shattering confidence and triggering a crisis. Home buyers began refusing to pay mortgages on unfinished homes, and property sales plummeted. The real estate engine that powered China's boom is now threatening to unwind the entire economic model. Beyond real estate, China's local governments have fueled the boom and the risk through hidden debt. Official government debt looks manageable, but off-balance sheet borrowing by thousands of LGFVs tells a different story. LGFVs, set up to bypass borrowing limits, have borrowed trillions to fund infrastructure, using state assets as collateral. Their debt doesn't appear on government books, but everyone assumes the state will back them if they fail. Estimates put hidden local debt between $7 and $13 trillion, enough to push China's public debt into the danger zone. Many LGFV projects don't generate enough cash to service their debt, leaving them teetering on default. As the economy slows and land sales dry up, local governments struggle to support their LGFVs. Defaults are rising, especially in poorer provinces, threatening state-owned banks and the broader financial system. A wave of LGFV failures could turn a local problem into a national crisis. The hidden debt bomb is now ticking louder than ever. With debt soaring and property slumping, why hasn't China crashed? The answer: state control. The Communist Party wields unmatched power over the economy. China's debt is mostly domestic, owed in yuan, and held by state-owned banks lending to state-owned borrowers. This closed-loop system lets the government order banks to roll over loans, preventing mass defaults. Strict capital controls keep money from fleeing the country, trapping savings that can be redirected to prop up struggling sectors. The state can orchestrate controlled demolitions of failing giants, merge companies, and inject liquidity as needed. These tools have delayed a Lehman-style meltdown, but this control comes at a cost. It masks underlying risks and delays necessary reforms. The Great Wall of Control has held so far, but cracks are showing. Despite Beijing's control, the cracks in China's debt wall are widening. The property crisis is eroding household wealth, chilling consumer spending, and dragging down growth. Shadow banking, lending outside traditional banks, remains a threat, with bad loans tied to failing real estate. China's old growth model, based on infrastructure and property, is exhausted. Transitioning to a new model, driven by consumption and innovation, is proving slow and difficult. Slower growth makes managing debt harder. What was manageable at 8% growth becomes crushing at 3%. A sharp slowdown would hammer global commodity prices and reduce demand for goods worldwide. Global companies reliant on China would see revenues plunge. A financial crisis could trigger global instability as investors pull money from emerging markets. The world is too interconnected to ignore a Chinese meltdown. The risks are no longer just China's, they're everyone's. Beijing is now in a high-stakes balancing act: reduce risk without killing growth. The government is issuing central bonds to bail out local governments and finish stalled housing projects. This shifts risk from opaque local entities to the central government's stronger balance sheet. Special bonds provide liquidity, allowing provinces to restructure LGFV debts and prevent defaults. The government is also ensuring prepaid apartments are delivered, restoring public confidence. The central bank is cautiously easing policy, cutting rates and reserve requirements to support lending, but too much easing risks reigniting the bubble, too little risks a credit crunch. The focus is on maintaining growth and social stability, with new investment in tech and green energy. The hope new sectors can replace property as engines of growth. The challenge? Can this state-led push create real sustainable growth, or just new bubbles? As of mid-2025, China's future hangs in the balance. The best-case scenario, a slow, controlled deleveraging, gradually deflating the property bubble, restructuring debt, and shifting to consumption and tech. This would mean slower growth, but no catastrophic crisis, a Japan-style stagnation. The worst case, a disorderly crisis triggered by a major default or collapse in confidence, leading to a hard landing and global recession. Most likely is a muddle through recurring crises, ongoing state intervention, and prolonged uncertainty. Beijing will keep putting out fires with bailouts and liquidity injections. The result: economic malaise, with China avoiding collapse but failing to achieve vibrant growth. This matters to everyone. A stable China has powered global growth. A stagnant China drags the world down. Its financial instability could spill across borders, threatening global recovery. The grand experiment that lifted millions from poverty has reached its limit. Now, the world watches. Can China tame its debt, or will its fire-breathing economy finally burn out?